4 Keys to Eternal Happiness. Part 5.
Trials for Growth.
Hi. Through this lecture, you will learn the secrets to living a happy life for a lifetime. Additionally, you will get fundamental healing of body and mind, from depression to adult diseases. Do I date to give love? 1. Freedom name of surviving cost.
My family members who live with me are giving me a hard time. What should I do?
Surviving cost is an essential element for a happy life, and that is why a job is a very important condition for happiness. When I counseled, I saw that many people were suffering from interpersonal relationships, especially from their families. It would be easy to resolve the issue if they left the person who didn't fit with them, but the most important reason for not doing so was financial issue. If you don't have the financial ability to take responsibility for yourself, you have to endure difficult relationships and live relying on others. Living in a house with someone you don't want to be with means every single day is hell. If you have a job, you'll be stressed, but if you don't have a job, you'll be in hell. Poverty in the midst of plenty.
Korea's suicide rate has consistently been the highest in the world. Koreans say the reason is financially difficulties.
When I was young, most Koreans were poor, but that's not the case now. When I was young, I never went on a family trip. My only travel options were visiting relatives during school vacations. Back then, there were Koreans who traveled abroad, but they were limited to rich persons and some high-ranking government officials. The number of Koreans visiting Japan in 2024 is 8.82 million. The number of Japanese visiting Korea in the same year is 3.22 million. Korea's population is 50 million, and Japan's is more than twice that. So, does that mean Koreans like Japan, but Japanese people hate Korea? That's not true. Among Koreans who have traveled abroad, 25% have visited Japan, and among Japanese who have traveled abroad, 25% have visited Korea. The conclusion is that Koreans travel abroad a lot, and Japanese travel abroad less. In 2024, the annual sales of the top 3 luxury brands, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, and Chanel, in Korea, will be $3.4 billion. When I was young, there were very few people who could afford to buy luxury goods. This is evidence that Koreans today are materially rich. Money is a very important factor in happiness, but it's enough if you have the degree you need to survive. The reason why Koreans have a high suicide rate is because of depression, and depression is a disease of the body, not the mind. Financial problems when you have children.
I want to give good education to my children for their future, but it costs a lot of money. So I keep working a stressful job. Is there a better way?
If you live alone, you can do what you want and earn a little money without any problems. However, if you have children, you face harsh reality. Food, clothes, toys, education, medical expenses, communication expenses, housing expenses, etc. The amount of money spent on children is endless. Parents have to sacrifice many things for their children's future. Here are some ways to raise your children well without giving up your own happiness. 1. Let's also make your children follow the 4 keys rule. In reality, the biggest expense for raising children is education. If your children want a future job, and if you allow it, they will study on their own without anyone telling them to. It is also important to find hobbies that your children can enjoy and that are related to their careers. Then, encourage them to find and study something related to their careers. This will significantly reduce the cost of education. 2. If your children don't know what they want to do, focus on health. If the body is weak, the mind will also be weak, and there will be no motivation for anything. If the body is healthy, the desire for self-realization will naturally arise. 3. Students can save on tuition by working part-time, studying hard to graduate from school early, or receiving a scholarship. 4. If a student wants a career that requires a lot of tuition, such as a doctor or lawyer, there is a way to rely on bank loans. U.S. President Obama paid his tuition with a bank loan, and it took him 13 years to pay off all his loans after graduation.
Many researchers say that as AI advances, there will be more unemployed people. Is there a solution?
I propose one social reform plan for the survival of the next generation. The fourth industrial revolution will take away many workers' jobs. This is because robots will replace not only human physical labor, but also mental labor. While there will be few new jobs created, there will be many jobs that will disappear. Many scholars say that AI companies should be taxed to support the unemployed. But if there are no buyers for products produced by AI, which company can sell products, and who will pay the tax? Problems caused by automation technology can be solved by automation technology. If robots handle the entire process of producing daily necessities, production costs will be greatly reduced. If products and services in the fields of food, clothing, shelter, education, medical care, and daily necessities are all produced and provided by AI, the taxes paid by companies alone can support all poor people. How to teach wisdom.
I want to teach my children wisdom. How can I do that?
Knowledge can be taught, but wisdom cannot be taught. The moment wisdom is taught, it becomes knowledge. Knowledge is information that is injected from the outside, while wisdom is a creative work that the students create on their own. There are 3 ingredients that make up wisdom: knowledge, experience, and thought. Let's take a paper airplane as an example. 1. First, the student studies the paper airplane design. It's knowledge. 2. Fold the paper according to the design to make an airplane. It's experience. 3. If it didn't go as expected, the student think about the cause. If it went as expected, the student think about how to improve it. It's thought. 4. Then, the student looks at another paper airplane design and repeats the above process. The most important factor among the materials that create wisdom is experience. Even if students don't have knowledge, they can accumulate knowledge by themselves if they have a lot of experience. However, if they have a lot of knowledge, they can reduce trial and error. Humans can't find the answer just by thinking without experience. In order for experience to turn into wisdom, people need to organize their thoughts and take time to find the rules. That's why it's important to have enough time to think. Humans can only apply what they have experienced to reality. Wisdom is a lesson that students gain through their own experiences. The only way to teach wisdom is to lead students to experience it themselves. Because the fastest way for students to grow is to make a lot of mistakes. Wisdom is the child of a mistake, and a mistake is the child of an experience. A person who teaches knowledge is a teacher, and a person who guides a student through the process of gaining wisdom is a mentor. How poor students succeed.
I am not satisfied with a simple life and want to achieve social success. However, my parents are not financially well off enough to support my dreams. How can I achieve my dreams?
Here's how to be socially successful if you're not financially well off. The reason why rich students are more successful is because they don't give up. Even if they fail once or twice, they can always start over because they have financial freedom. However, poor students cannot start over if they fail once. How can poor students succeed socially? The answer is to do it like rich students. Instead of money, try hard and repeat the challenge until they succeed. Unfortunately, it is very likely that what you want to do will not be recognized by others. Because a job is doing some work other people don't want to do and get paid for it. Hardships are stepping stones to growth. 1.
Life is so hard. Are hardships really necessary in life?
To explain the necessity of hardships, I will explain the phenomenon of the Earth freeze. The Earth freeze refers to the phenomenon in which the entire Earth is frozen solid, and this is a different concept from the Ice Age. The Ice Age continues to repeat in cycles of 20,000 to 30,000 years, and is a phenomenon in which about 1/3 of the Earth is covered with ice. The area near the equator and the ocean do not freeze. However, the Earth freeze phenomenon is much colder than the Ice Age. The entire Earth freezes, even the oceans. It is so cold that most living things cannot survive. It is said that such an extreme situation has occurred twice so far. The reason why there was the Earth freeze 800 million years ago was because there was a shortage of greenhouse gases at that time. Carbon dioxide, the main cause of global warming, existed in very small amounts in the past, as did oxygen. The lack of carbon dioxide caused the weather to become cold. Since there was also a shortage of oxygen, there were not many living things, and therefore the amount of carbon dioxide produced by animals was not much. At that time, the biggest source of carbon dioxide was volcanic eruptions. When volcanoes erupted, a large amount of carbon dioxide was emitted. However, this quickly disappeared. This was because the ocean absorbed the carbon dioxide. Note, even today, the ocean absorbs a large amount of carbon dioxide, but the amount produced by humans is so large that it has exceeded its limit, and as a result, global warming is accelerating. In the past, due to the lack of carbon dioxide, the Earth was so cold that the oceans froze, but volcanic eruptions continued. A lot of carbon dioxide was produced, and now it remains in the air. Because the oceans were frozen, the carbon dioxide did not disappear. In a short period of time, hundreds of years, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has increased dramatically. This has caused global temperatures to rise. Eventually, the oceans have begun to melt. The phytoplankton in the oceans have begun to convert carbon dioxide into oxygen. All the ice has melted, but two major differences have occurred compared to before. First, the temperature has risen. Second, oxygen has become abundant. The environment has changed to live for many living things. There have been 2 Earth freezes in the history of the Earth, and each time the concentration of oxygen increased dramatically. The reason life on this Earth was able to thrive was because of the extreme hardships. The same goes for humans. The more serious the illness, the more severe the pain, the more economically difficult, the lonelier. After overcoming those difficulties, humans achieve remarkable growth. Are you having a hard time and suffering? Just hold on a little longer and be strong. There is a dazzling reward waiting for you beyond that hill. In my experience, growth has nothing to do with how much pain did you suffer. Growth has to do with how much effort did you make. Hardships are stepping stones to growth too.
It seems like such a cliché. The Earth freeze phenomenon is a global environmental event, and I am a human being, so there is a difference.
I am not writing this to comfort you with a few words. I am writing this to say, hardships are essential for growth. Why hardships are essential for growth can be clearly seen by looking back at the history of mankind. Its origin goes back to the first single-celled organisms. The first life forms lived in water and had no fins, so they had to rely on the ocean current to move. After 2 severe Earth freezes, oxygen increased exponentially. As a result, a substance called collagen was able to synthesize, and thanks to this collagen, cells can stick together and develop into multicellular life forms. After several stages, life evolved into fish with fins. They were able to move freely, but small fish became food for large fish. To avoid predators, small fish swim upstream from the sea to the river and adapt to fresh water. But then big fishes followed small fishes. To avoid being eaten, the small fish hid among the fallen branches in the river, and in order to break through the branches, it grew protrusions on its body. These protrusions developed into feet, and finally it began its great walk onto land. Fishes evolved from amphibians to reptiles in order to adapt to life on land. Among reptiles, there were small animals and large animals. Naturally, the small animals became food for the large animals. But the funny thing is that the ancestors of the dinosaurs that ruled the earth were only about the size of a cat. These weak reptiles evolved into giant dinosaurs. Eventually, the large reptiles that ate the small reptiles became food for the dinosaurs and disappeared. Until then, mammals, the distant ancestors of humans, were small, rat-like creatures. Naturally, they were nothing more than foods to dinosaurs. In this way, mammals avoided dinosaurs and survived underground for 130 million years. A great disaster hit the Earth 65 million years ago. A huge meteorite crashed into the Earth, covering the entire planet in flames and fallout. Poisonous gases killed all living things around it, and black clouds blocked the sun, causing severe cold and destroying the ecosystem. However, in this harsh ordeal, the dinosaurs were completely wiped out, but the mammals survived. The small mammals were able to survive because they only moved to low-lying areas to avoid the poisonous gases. After the dinosaurs disappeared, the world of mammals finally came. But for our ancestors, it was still a series of trials. Large mammals appeared, but our ancestors were small and looked like weasels, and were still just prey. At that moment, our ancestors made a unique choice. Usually, carnivores and herbivores have different eye positions. Herbivores have eyes on both sides because they always have to be on the lookout. However, carnivores have their eyes in the front. Our ancestors were weak beings. However, their eyes were placed in the front. The reason for this is that they climbed up trees to avoid predators. Thanks to this, they no longer had to be on the lookout, and their eyes were placed in the front, allowing them to clearly distinguish objects. Their hands also became free. Their hands developed because they lived in trees and ate fruit. Source from NHK. Amazing Earth. 8 million years ago, our ancestors faced a great hardship. The explosion of a supernova caused frequent lightning strikes and fires on Earth. Our ancestors lost the forests and trees that were their home. Our ancestors, who came down from the trees, chose to walk upright in order to survive. In the process, they were divided into monkeys, orangutans, gorillas, and apes. The ancestors of mankind walked upright, and the weight was reduced on the neck supporting the head, which made the brain bigger. Even though they came down from the trees, the apes were still weak creatures. They lived in groups to protect themselves from predators, and they began to use weapons and fire. Because they were weak, they became stronger. 3 million years ago, the ancestor of all apes, Australopithecus, appeared in Africa. Since then, more than 20 species of apes have appeared on this land. However, most of them disappeared due to the harsh hardships of nature, and only one species, Homo sapiens, survived. After such a long and difficult journey, mankind finally became the master of the earth. Imagine how hard and difficult it must have been. All beings that have ruled the land so far have two things in common. First, they were weak beings. Second, they have evolved constantly. As the moon wanes when it's full, the strong always disappeared. Even the weak disappeared if they did not evolve. As it has been for hundreds of millions of years, hardships are the driving force of evolution. Humans are animals that can evolve while they are alive. Those who evolve can become the true masters of life. Hardships are stepping stones to growth 3.
Technology has advanced so much now that it is incomparable to the Stone Age. If I receive a good education, wouldn't I be able to grow without having to go through hardships?
Stanford University in the U.S. conducted an experiment by dividing students taking a ceramics class into 2 groups. Group A was promised a high score if they submitted 50 works, while Group B would get score based on just 1 work. Which group's work was better, Group A or Group B? Group A's works were better because they made more works, they made more failures, and their skills grew faster. Group B's works focused only 1 work, so they tried not to make mistakes, and eventually they didn't have enough opportunities to grow their skills. Evolution is a repeated process of attempting numerous challenges, and among them, only 1 or 2 species that are most advantageous in adapting to the environment survive, while the rest disappear. The same goes for humans. There must be trials to fail, and the more you fail, the faster you grow. Thank you for attending this lecture. See you in the Part 6.